The strike that should have killed. The assassin waited in silence, cloaked by a field of refracted light that bent space around her body. She was a Kareth, bred for one purpose across countless generations: precision elimination. Her species prided itself on understanding every nuance of biology. Kill the right organ and the body crumbles. Strike the core and no being survives. And tonight, her prey was human. The Kareth Guild had been contracted by the Zyvar Coalition, an empire already bloodied by humanity's rise. Their fleets had underestimated Earth's scattered colonies, only to watch those fragile primates fight back with a ferocity unseen in any other species. If humans could be broken, the Coalition had reasoned, it wouldn't be an open war. It would be through surgical strikes. Remove their leaders, their scientists, their tacticians, and humanity would wither. That's where the Kareth came in. The assassin had studied human anatomy exhaustively. She had scrolled through captured medical databases, dissected prisoners in sterile chambers, and trained endlessly on holosyms. Humans were laughably inefficient. Redundant systems, organs that seemed half-functional, and weak vascular pathways that could be severed with little effort. A heart pierced, dead in seconds. A lung collapsed, suffocation in minutes. The soft jelly of their brain, the ultimate kill switch. So why, she wondered, did the Guild's first 3 missions fail? Her fingers curled around the bioneedle hidden in her gauntlet. Tonight she would not fail. The target was Colonel Elias Kane. Human, male, 43 years old, veteran of the Outer Belt Wars. Current post: lead coordinator of Earth's defense fleet stationed in orbit above Titan. The assassin watched from the rafters of the command outpost as Kane dismissed his officers. His movements were steady, efficient, almost annoyingly relaxed for someone marked for death. The others left the chamber, leaving him alone with his reports and the faint glow of Saturn in the viewport. She descended, silent as the void. The needle slid free. One thrust, angled perfectly, straight into the left ventricle of his heart. The organ convulsed under her strike. Kane's eyes went wide. His body lurched forward across the desk. She expected collapse, expected the flat line of human fragility. Instead, he roared. The sound was not pain. It was rage. His fist slammed backward, catching her across the jaw. The cloaking field flickered and shattered. She was visible now, sprawled across the command deck. And Kane? He was standing, bleeding, gasping, but standing. "You picked the wrong species," he growled. The assassin blinked, confusion flooding her thoughts. She had pierced his heart. She had felt it rupture. The blood was there, pouring, proof of the strike. Yet somehow, impossibly, the human lived. Elias Kane's vision blurred at the edges, but he refused to fall. The sharp sting in his chest told him what had happened. His heart had been punctured. Sure, but it wasn't the first time he'd tasted death. He remembered the Mars offensive. Shrapnel had torn through his chest then too. He'd been told afterward that one lung was gone, shredded beyond saving. The surgeons had shrugged and said, "You'll learn to breathe differently." And he had. Humans adapted. This assassin thought him dead already. But she didn't understand. Humans weren't built to be efficient, they were built to survive. If one part failed, another would take the strain. If a heart was torn, the second half kept beating. If a lung collapsed, the other swelled twice its size. Pain wasn't an ending. Pain was just a reminder to keep moving. The assassin recovered quickly, launching herself into a flurry of strikes. Blades flicked from her wrists, slicing arcs toward his throat. Kane ducked, caught her arm, and drove her into the steel bulkhead. Her speed was supernatural, her strikes faster than his reflexes, but his stubborn refusal to collapse unnerved her. "You should be dead," she hissed, voice a mix of disbelief and fury. Kane spat blood, eyes hard. "Yeah, I've been hearing that since I was 20. He shoved forward. The alien twisted, slipping free, and slashed again, this time across his side. The blade ripped into flesh, cutting deep into his liver. A fatal wound by most species standards. She smiled in triumph until he kept coming. Still moving, still fighting. Her mind reeled. No being could take such hits. No being should remain upright after losing so much blood. Yet humans refused the script biology had written for them. The fight raged across the command chamber. Tables splintered under thrown bodies. The viewport cracked from the shock of impacts. Kane's uniform was soaked in blood, each breath a wheeze of effort. Yet his grip only tightened around the assassin's throat when he finally pinned her to the floor. "Listen carefully," he said, voice ragged but steady. "Your mistake wasn't coming for me. It was thinking you knew what a human is." Her mandibles trembled. "You are impossible." He bared his teeth, a grim smile carved from exhaustion and defiance. "No, just human." With one final twist, he snapped the mechanism on her cloaking harness, rendering her powerless. Guards stormed the room moments later, weapons raised. The assassin struggled, still reeling, not just from the fight, but from the realization that had shaken her entire training. She had pierced his heart. She had shredded his liver. By every biological law she knew, he should have died. Yet here he was, still standing. And worse, he was laughing. Later, in the medbay, Kane sat upright on the table while medics stitched his wounds. They whispered about how he should be unconscious, maybe even flatlined, but Kane ignored them. His focus was on the prisoner held in containment nearby. "Tell your masters this," he said. His voice amplified through the speakers so she could hear. "You want to kill us? Better come up with something new. Because we don't break the way you think." The assassin's eyes narrowed. Fear. Not of pain, not of capture, but of knowledge. Knowledge that her guild's understanding of human anatomy was flawed, dangerously so. If humans didn't need all their organs, then killing them was never about precision. It was about persistence. And persistence was the one thing the Kareth assassins had never faced in their prey. Kane leaned back, wincing as stitches tightened in his chest. "First rule of war," he muttered, almost to himself. "Never assume humans are fragile." The assassin said nothing, but deep down, she knew this mission had already rewritten every page of the guild's doctrine. For the first time in her life, she wondered if assassinating a human was even possible. The guild's disbelief. The guild chamber was carved into the bedrock of a barren asteroid, far from the prying eyes of empires and fleets. Here, the Kareth assassins plotted, trained, and perfected the art of ending life with surgical certainty. Their walls were adorned with records of contracts fulfilled. The fall of a Tarlok warlord with a severed spinal cluster, the silent death of an Othari prime minister via ruptured throat sacs, the collapse of a Kavar dynasty when their matriarch's breathing nodes were crushed mid-slumber. The Kareth prided themselves on understanding the fragility of biology. Every species had a kill switch. Find it, exploit it, profit. But now, in the center of the chamber, a single hologram flickered, a replay of failure. Colonel Elias Kane, stabbed through the heart, sliced through the liver, still standing, still breathing, still fighting. The guildmistress's mandibles twitched in agitation. Elder Vera had overseen the guild for nearly 3 centuries, her claws responsible for hundreds of precise kills. Never once had she seen a failure so complete. The assassin knelt before her, bruised and bound in shame. "I pierced the ventricle." His blood filled his chest cavity. He should have collapsed instantly. Her voice trembled, disbelief breaking her composure. "He didn't die." Murmurs erupted across the chamber. Impossible. Madness. Defiance of biology itself. One younger assassin spat in disgust. "You missed. No heart can endure such a wound." "I did not miss." The kneeling assassin snapped, her pride flaring despite her shame. "I felt it tear. I felt it rupture." Yet the human rose again. Vera raised a clawed hand for silence. "If what you say is true, then humanity is not what we believed. Their anatomy has been misjudged." She turned to the chamber's scholars, gray-skinned Kareth who spent lifetimes dissecting corpses and cataloging physiology. "Explain this. How does a being live without its heart?" The eldest scholar rasped, his voice like dry stone. "We have dissected many humans. Their structures are primitive, inefficient. A redundant system, yes, but not immortal. The heart is their primary pump. Without it, blood cannot flow. Without blood, the body cannot live. Yet one did live. Vera hissed, mandibles clacking. Our knowledge is flawed. The question is not how he should have died, but how he survived. The scholar hesitated. Perhaps he did not require the whole heart. Perhaps their organs function even in fragments. The chamber erupted again. Fragments? Survival after rupture? Such a thing was unheard of. But the evidence could not be denied. The guild mistress ordered a full review. Holograms lit the air with medical archives, stolen from human colonies, translated by machines, scoured by alien eyes. The assassins leaned forward, studying crude diagrams of lungs, livers, kidneys, stomachs. To kill a Zyvar, one scholar reminded, you sever the throat sac. To kill a Tarlock, you puncture the bone core. But with humans, he gestured at the files, there are too many redundancies. 2 lungs, yet they can breathe with 1. 2 kidneys, yet they survive with 1. Their liver regrows if damaged. Even their intestines can be shortened, and still they endure. Obscene, muttered one assassin. A body built to resist death itself. Not resist, Vera corrected coldly. Adapt. The word hung heavy in the chamber. Adaptation. It was humanity's signature. From the icy void of Europa to the scorched sands of Venus colonies, humans lived where no other species dared. They altered their diets, rewired their breathing, even scarred their bodies with crude augmentations to keep fighting. What other prey lost half its function and yet pressed forward with teeth bared? The guild mistress's eyes burned. This explains why our first missions failed. We assumed precision was enough. But the human body does not obey precision. To kill them, we must think differently. The kneeling assassin raised her voice again. Guild mistress, if I may, there was more. It was not just his body that resisted. It was his mind. Even as his heart bled, even as his liver tore, he fought as though death were nothing. Pain did not slow him. It drove him. A silence fell. The guild had faced many creatures with redundant biology. The Kavar had 2 hearts, the Zalari 4 breathing vents. But none of them wanted to fight while dying. They fled. They panicked. They surrendered. Humans, it seemed, did not. They leaned into death. They dragged it with them like a weapon. The guild mistress rose to her full height, her shadow stretching long across the chamber floor. Then we are facing something worse than redundancy. We face will. A will that denies biology. A will that turns death itself into fuel. The words unsettled even the most hardened assassins. One hissed nervously. Guild mistress, are you saying humans cannot be killed? Vera's mandibles clicked together sharply. All things die, but humans must be unmade, not killed. Their bodies break in pieces, yet keep going. Their minds ignore the pain that cripples others. To strike them down will require more than anatomy. It will require annihilation. The assassin who failed lifted her head, shame twisting with defiance. Then let me try again. Not with precision this time, but with overwhelming force. Let me prove humans can be ended. The guild mistress studied her for a long moment. The younger assassin stirred, whispers flickering through the chamber like sparks. At last Vera spoke. You will try again, but not alone. Humanity has drawn the gaze of the empires, and the guild must adapt as they do. We will send a cadre, multiple assassins, multiple strikes. Let us see if the species truly deserves its reputation. A murmur of agreement swept the chamber. Strike them not in one place, Vera continued, but in many. Sever lungs, crush the skull, bleed the gut, blind the eyes. Test every weakness at once. If they survive that, her mandibles curled into a rare expression, a smile without warmth. Then perhaps they are not prey at all. Far away on Titan, Elias Kane was already back on his feet, bandaged, bruised, stitched, but walking the command deck as though nothing had happened. His officers whispered in awe, their morale swelling with the story of how he had survived a direct assassination attempt. Kane, for his part, shrugged it off. I told you before, he muttered, scanning star maps. They think we're fragile. Let's make sure they keep thinking that, until it's too late. But in the shadows of the cosmos, the Kareth Guild was preparing. Not for a single strike, but a storm of them. They would test every organ, every weakness, every so-called vital point. And Cain knew, deep down, that humanity's true trial hadn't even begun. A storm of blades. The assassins came in silence. 5 cloaked Kareth operatives, each one lethal enough to bring down a warlord, drifted through the shadows of Titan Base. Their mission was simple: redundancy. Strike 5 humans at once in 5 different ways and see what held. This was no test of skill, it was a test of biology. The guildmistress's words echoed in their minds. Do not assume. Prove. Break them in every way. See what remains. The first target. Captain Leora Chun, tactical officer. She left the training hall late, sweat glistening on her brow, unaware of the shadow perched above. The first assassin dropped silently, driving a serrated blade into her side, clean through her kidney. Blood pooled instantly, the wound jagged and deep. The assassin twisted the blade, certain the strike was fatal. Chun staggered, gasped, then did something no prey should have done. She seized the alien's wrist and headbutted it so hard its mandibles cracked. Wrong organ, she spat, blood dripping from her lips. Got another one. Her fist crushed the assassin's throat before security even arrived. The second target. Dr. Malik Varga, chief medic. He bent over a console in the infirmary, recording Cain's latest vitals, when the air shimmered behind him. A needle dart whistled through the cloaking field, embedding itself into his liver. Poison flooded his veins. The assassin stepped forward to watch his collapse. But instead of falling, Varga yanked the dart free, eyes blazing. You think I don't know how to counteract this? He jabbed the emergency injector into his thigh, neutralizing the toxin with a surge of stimulants. The assassin lunged again, but Varga wasn't a soldier by accident. With one hand, he slammed a scalpel into its eye, driving the alien back long enough for Marines to storm the medbay. The medic collapsed only when the fight was over. Alive, breathing hard, stabilizing himself even as his body tried to shut down. The third target. Lieutenant Orson Hale, pilot. He never saw the blade coming. It sliced into his chest as he strapped into a simulator, puncturing one lung clean through. Air hissed from the wound with every breath, crimson frothing at his lips. The assassin whispered, "Collapse," but Orson laughed through the blood. He hit the eject lever on his chair, slamming both of them backward. The alien tumbled across the floor, cloak flickering. Orson rose, dragging himself forward with half a lung. "I don't need 2, he croaked, swinging a wrench with brutal precision. He fought until security dragged him away to surgery, alive and grinning despite the gaping wound. The fourth target. Commander Sarah Nix, fleet strategist. Her quarters were silent. She was deep in sleep when the assassin slipped through the shadows, placing a knife at her throat. One slash, that was all it took to sever the carotid, the sacred artery of nearly every species. The blade cut. Blood sprayed across the sheets. The assassin leaned in to whisper, "The guild sends it." But Sarah's hand snapped upward, catching the assassin's wrist. Her throat was open. Her voice rasped, gurgling. But she was still awake, still conscious. "You didn't cut deep enough." She drove her forehead into the alien's skull, then jammed her thumb into its eye socket. By the time medics arrived, she was choking on her own blood, yet still had the strength to pin the assassin to the floor. She didn't die that night. Surgery rebuilt the artery. Her defiance lived on. The fifth target. Colonel Elias Cain. Again. The guild wanted certainty, wanted to know if his first survival had been a fluke. 2 assassins came for him this time, slipping into the command center in tandem. One struck at his spine, the other at his skull. The spinal blade severed vertebrae. The cranial needle punctured bone. By every chart, by every rule, Cain should have been paralyzed and unconscious. Instead, he bellowed like a storm. His fists slammed one assassin into the wall. His boots crushed the other's ribcage. Pain surged like fire through his body. But Cain had lived through worse. Mars had broken him once, left him with half his organs stitched together with synthetic mesh. Since then, he had learned one truth. Humans didn't wait for permission to live. When the guards burst in, both assassins were dead. Cain stood between them, bleeding, staggering, but alive. "Tell your guild," he muttered into the corpse's twitching face. "Stop aiming for pieces. You'll have to burn us whole." The aftermath. Hours later, Titan Base was in chaos. 5 assassinations. 5 direct strikes at vital points. And not a single human lay dead. Some were injured severely, but alive, breathing, fighting still. The guild had planned a lesson. Instead, they had received one. Word spread like fire across the fleet. Humans, it seemed, could take what killed others and keep moving. Soldiers joked grimly that they were spare part creatures. Pilots bragged that they could fly with half a lung. Medics muttered in awe that livers grew back. Kidneys worked in pairs. Intestines adapted. It was more than biology. It was defiance. The guild's rage. Back on the asteroid, the guild mistress listened to the reports in silence. 5 assassins gone. 5 humans survived. One scholar trembled as he spoke. "It is confirmed. Redundancy is not coincidence. It is evolution. Humans are not efficient, but resilient. They are designed to lose and still continue." "Designed by who?" spat one assassin. The scholar's mandibles clicked nervously. "By nature itself. By their world. A planet of poisons, storms, and predators. Fragility shaped into endurance." The guild mistress rose slowly, her claws tracing the scars etched into the stone around her throne. "So be it," she whispered. "We cannot kill what refuses death, but we can break them." Her eyes burned like coals. "If organs fail and they persist, then we target not organs but hope. We strike their morale, their families, their bonds." The chamber hissed in approval. "Let the humans keep their redundant hearts and regrowing livers. Let them survive their wounds." "It will not matter," Vera said, her voice dripping venom. "When their spirits break, their bodies will follow." Titan Dawn. Elias Cain limped through the base infirmary, visiting each survivor of the night's attacks. Chan, her kidney removed, still smirked when she saw him. Varga, pale but alive, nodded as if to say, "I told you I'd manage." Orson, tubes in his chest, cracked a grin that turned into a cough. Nyx, her throat scarred, whispered hoarsely, "Next time, they'll have to do better." Cain looked at them all, pride swelling in his chest despite the agony of his own wounds. The guild thought it was studying anatomy, but what it had really uncovered was humanity's truth. "We don't survive because of our organs," Cain told them quietly. "We survive because of each other. As long as one of us stands, none of us fall." The others nodded, grim smiles on bloodied faces. And in the shadows of Titan's dawn, humanity prepared, not to defend, not to endure, but to strike back. The anatomy of revenge. The guild mistress stood before her assassins, mandibles clattering in restrained fury. 5 missions had failed. 5 carefully chosen strikes at 5 different organs, and not one human corpse to show for it. Worse still, every failed attempt became myth. Word of human endurance had spread beyond Titan, beyond Saturn's orbit, across entire networks of the coalition. Whispers grew. The assassins can't kill them. Humans don't die. For a guild built on fear and certainty, such rumors were poison. End them. Vera hissed, her voice echoing through the chamber. Not one human. Not 5. All of Titan. Reduce their morale to ash. If they endure wounds, then leave them no one left to fight for. The assassins bowed. The guild prepared its largest strike in centuries. What they did not know was this. The humans were already waiting. The bait. Colonel Elias Cain stood in the center of the Titan command hall, bandages still tight around his ribs, stitches pulling across his chest. Pain throbbed through every nerve, but he wore it like armor. Across the holodeble, Commander Nyx rasped through her healing throat. "They'll come again. You can feel it. The guild's pride won't let them stop. Good, Kane replied, his tone cold. We're going to let them. Chun raised an eyebrow from her cot. Sir, are you saying we set ourselves up as bait? I'm saying we make them think they're finally going to win. The plan was brutal in its simplicity. Humans would appear vulnerable, alone, unprotected. The assassins would strike again, confident in their superiority. But this time, every corridor, every shadow, every flicker of darkness would be rigged with eyes, traps, and hidden soldiers. Kane's grin was sharp despite the blood on his lips. They've studied our anatomy. Now let's study theirs. The arrival. The guild descended on Titan in silence. 30 assassins cloaked, moving like living blades through the corridors of the outpost. Never before had so many been dispatched for a single mission. Their plan was annihilation. Cut down officers, scientists, soldiers. Leave no human standing. What they didn't realize was that every corridor they crept through was a corridor chosen by Kane. The first assassin lunged into the medbay, expecting to find Dr. Varga alone. Instead, she found a dozen soldiers waiting in blackout armor. Bullets shredded the air before she even uncloaked. Her blood hit the sterile floor before she had time to scream. The guild adjusted, shifted. But every chamber, every supposed blind spot was already covered. For the first time, the assassins felt hunted. The trap springs. Kane himself sat alone in the strategy hall, hunched over maps. His posture slouched as though exhaustion had finally claimed him. 2 assassins emerged behind him, blades ready, cloaks shimmering. They struck. Their blades sank into his torso, one puncturing his side, another piercing the remnants of his already scarred chest. Kane coughed blood, slumped forward, then grinned. Wrong again. The lights flared to life. The cloaking fields collapsed under an EMP burst. And from the shadows, soldiers poured in, humans who had been waiting, silent, watching. The assassins froze. Kane yanked the blade from his own chest and drove it into one of theirs. The other tried to flee, only to be dragged down under a wave of armored marines. Understanding the hunters. The guild had studied human anatomy with obsession, thinking organs were the key. But as the battle spread across Titan Base, they realized the truth too late. It wasn't organs that mattered. It was adaptability. Humans fought with bullets when their fists failed. They fought with fists when their blades were gone. They fought with blood in their mouths and fire in their eyes. Even with lungs collapsed, throats torn, kidneys absent. And worse, they fought together. When one fell, another dragged them back. When one bled, another covered their flank. No Kareth had ever witnessed prey that treated every individual wound as part of a greater whole. It was not one organism they were fighting. It was a hive of stubborn wills bound together. The assassins realized, too late, that humans didn't survive because their organs were redundant. They survived because their species was redundant. Where one failed, another rose. Where one bled, another fought harder. The breaking of the guild. By the time dawn rose over Titan, 23 assassins lay dead. 5 more were captured. 2 fled into the void, their cloaks barely carrying them to safety. The guild had never suffered such losses. Not in centuries. Kane stood at the center of the carnage, his uniform shredded, his body barely upright. Blood streaked his face. His ribs burned with every breath, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. He looked at the captured assassin struggling against her bonds, mandibles clicking in fury and disbelief. "You thought you could end us by cutting pieces away," he said, voice rough but steady. "Hearts, lungs, livers. But here's the thing." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Humans aren't built like machines. We're not designed to shut down when parts are missing. We're built to keep moving, no matter what." The assassin hissed. "Then you are not prey." Kane's smile was grim. "Exactly." Aftermath. The coalition expected to hear of Titan's fall. Instead, they received transmissions of victory. Footage of captured assassins, recordings of their failures, testimonies from humans who survived wounds that should have ended them. The message spread farther than the guild ever imagined. Across the stars, whispers turned into fear. Assassins had failed. The most feared killers in the galaxy couldn't break humanity. And if assassins couldn't kill them, what could? The lesson. That night, in the infirmary, Kane sat among his officers once again. Chan with one kidney, Orson with one lung, Varga with a patched liver, Nix with a scarred throat. Broken, wounded, incomplete, yet all alive, all smiling grimly. "Funny thing about us," Kane said, leaning back in his chair. "Every species looks at our biology and sees weakness, redundancy, waste." He gestured at them one by one. "But every so-called weakness is just another chance to survive. You can take half of what we are and we'll keep fighting with what's left." Nix rasped, her voice hoarse but unshaken. "And if they try to take everything?" Kane's grin widened. "Then we'll still be here, because survival isn't just in our bodies. It's in our will. You can't assassinate that." Epilogue. On the Guild's asteroid, silence reigned. The survivors of Titan limped back, humiliated, scarred, whispering the same truth. Humans don't die the way others do. The Guild mistress sat alone, mandibles trembling. For the first time in her centuries of rule, she had built her empire on the certainty of anatomy. Every creature had a kill switch, but humans weren't creatures of certainty. They were chaos in flesh, and chaos could not be assassinated.